Okay. So I just kind of want to recap, as I kind of do each week, a little, trying to keep us on track of what we're doing. So I wrote this out and I want to make sure I get all this in. So I am reading my notes. But as we consider the past weeks of this journey using the life cycle of a butterfly as a metaphor for our own transformation, we've spent most of this course looking and trying to understand the many, many forms of information that we have consumed over our lifetimes that have created the story of who we are and what we think of as our identity. These pieces of information include all the influences of our earliest days, as well as our Enneagram core motivations, childhood wounding messages, and all the many other behaviors and thought patterns associated with our Enneagram type. We've talked about what forms are, the beliefs we have about ourselves and the world around us, and how our attachment to these forms have created the defenses we needed as we were evolving through the early stages of development. We have questioned the truth about these beliefs and looked at whether they are still serving us today, or are they perhaps keeping us from evolving? Do they no longer serve us? And if not, how can we begin to release them? We are learning to question our attachment to our thoughts. In observing the metamorphosis process of the butterfly, we have come to understand that a radical transformation requires a surrender, and in the caterpillar, the surrendering of the form that was absolutely necessary until now and is ready to give birth to a new creature, one that has been waiting to be released, whose blueprint called imaginal cells, or the imago, or in our case, our true self, was there from the very beginning, even when it was just a seed, an egg. We have emphasized that this process is not simply being like better at our Enneagram type, but of a conscious awareness that we are not the limitations of our type or any other part of our old story. So tonight I want to look at one other aspect of our story, one we all have that, left unchecked, can leave us wondering, why do we stay stuck? Even with all the things that we've learned about our type, about our motives, about all the different things we've covered these past few weeks, is there something else that might be keeping us stuck? And so, have either of you read much about Eckhart Tolle's pain body? Okay. I first heard about this book called A New Earth from Eckhart back in 2008. And I consumed the book, and it just, I think I've said this before, it was life-changing for me and for Doug, for the way we began to see the narratives that we teach from, how it unfolded in a mind-blowing way. And it was the simple thing that Eckhart said, that we go from form to formlessness, form to formlessness. Well, in Doug's work, and in mine too, we took the concepts of form and formlessness, but you can't move from one to the other without the middle of the Venn diagram and the transform process. And that's what has led, was the beginning to this whole journey for me. Before I ever knew the Enneagram, before I ever knew Byron Katie, was this form to formlessness. And it plays in nature, it plays in our lives, it plays in the biblical narrative, which, that's Doug's, well, it's both of ours, but that's, and where we can transcend all narratives to see that we're all a universal identity. And that's what the beauty of this whole thing is, to me, is finding our oneness, not finding our differences in our types. Yes, they're there, just as they're as obvious within our genders or our nationalities or any of those things. I'm not denying those, but the unity that holds us all together is what this trajectory has been for us. So I want to try and give you just a little taste of what Eckhart calls the pain body. And Lee, you said something about listening over and over. I kid you not, I'm not exaggerating. And it's not that I'm such a slow learner or that I'm stupid, but I have literally listened to this webcast that Oprah and Eckhart did in 2008. They went week by week through the book. It was 10 chapters. And it was like one of the first webcasts ever. Of course, Oprah did it. And back in the day, I downloaded it to my little pink iPod, my little nano iPod. And I've listened to it no less than 1,000 hours. And I am not exaggerating, because from 2008 to now, I walk and walk and walk and listen and listen and listen. And it's like you said, every time I hear it, it either sinks in a little deeper or there's that, because it's the right time in my life for it to resonate, for it to make sense. So in my attempt to, explain what the pain body is, it's just going to be the tip of the iceberg. I cannot tell you how much I value the content of A New Earth and the concept of the pain body. And it has been a lifesaver in relationships, a lifesaver. When I go through this and explain what the pain body is, you're going to go, oh, I get that, if I can do it in justice at all. So let me go to screen share. Oh, no, don't do this to me. Uh-oh. Can you see that?
Nope.
Okay, I'm going to pause just a second here. Okay, so for those who wonder what in the world's going on, these sweet people have watched me try to screen share on a new computer. So I am basically reading the files right now. So they're not being recorded. But this is module 2. We are wrapping up the cocoon or the chrysalis phase. And I've labeled this Surrender Gives Way to Rebirth. And so the good old Venn diagram that you see almost every week with the chrysalis in the middle, I've just said surrendering identification with the old form is where transform happens. But transformation happens on the other side of surrender. Sometimes it is difficult to let go of a burden because it has become an entrenched part of your identity. That's a quote by young Pueblo. And so tonight, when we talk about the pain body, I'm focusing on beyond behaviors, motivations, childhood messages, and the layers of information that we have used to develop our sense of self, lies an accumulation of painful life experience that was not fully faced and accepted in the moment it arose. It leaves behind an energy form of emotional pain that Eckhart Tolle calls the pain body. So what is the pain body? The pain body takes many forms and manifestations: hurt, hate, depression, self-hate, anxiety, fear, alienation, despair, emotional drama, making mountains out of molehills, blame, and even physical illness. The pain body can be active or dormant. In this way, and many more, the pain body is like a virus. It lies dormant until something internal, like a negative thought, or external, something like someone cuts you off in traffic, something triggers the pain body and then it erupts. Some fortunate people only have occasional outbreaks of the pain body, and others live in an almost constant state of pain and misery, always unhappy, depressed, or angry. The pain body takes over the mind when activated. So like anything that is alive, it needs to eat. And the pain body feeds on energy that's like itself. And this is the important point. It feeds on pain. So when the pain body is activated, it's hungry and it needs to be fed. And so I'll explain that a little bit more. Against all reason, it looks for things to make it mad or sad or scared, and then keeps the feeding going. It will instigate a fight. It will passive aggressively provoke a reaction from someone, often someone with which they have a close relationship. And I would say most often. And there are 3 words that I want you to remember that will help diffuse an active pain body. Do not engage. Now, I'm going to stop screen sharing and just talk to y'all. So this pain body, it can be carried by individuals. It can be carried by collectives. It can be carried by nations. So it's this collective energy. And when it rises up in nations, then we often have war. The external manifestation of the pain body comes in form of violence usually. But let me just ask this question. Have you ever been with somebody and you go away going, ugh, they just know how to push my buttons, right? All of us. Yeah. That is why Eckhart says one of the times where the pain body is the most active is at like Thanksgiving or Christmas, when families get together, they bring all their past stories with them. And rare is it that there's a whole big family that they all just get along. We all carry stories. And even some of the same events are perceived differently. And so we carry this hurt, or maybe it really wasn't even what actually happened, but we've developed this story. And so we never really confronted it at the time. And over time, it just kind of, it seethes and it festers. And the more I've heard Eckhart talk about it, even Oprah said, you talk about it like it's a little animal or something. And he said, well, it's like another entity, because that pain body is just waiting for somebody to give it the energy. I've been so hurt, and I've carried this with me for years. And so it's real easy to see spouses that just know how to, right? How to just push the button, as they say, and it comes up and you're just looking for an excuse. Come on, feed me. Let's engage in this, because I have a story about this and I need you to tell me I'm wrong. Just tell me that's not how it happened. Great. You just fed me some energy that just lifted that up. So when we first heard this, do not engage, just do not engage, don't feed it, do not engage. So we began using that, and it's almost like a magic trick when somebody, you know, these people that really, they want you to understand they're miserable. They're miserable because of the story that they have built up in their head about this. They're miserable maybe because life has been really hard for them, and perhaps it has been unfair. But instead of doing the process that we've been talking about and saying it's a reality, it happened. That's back to Byron Katie, this loving what is seems so counterintuitive. How can I love what has happened to me? It's not that you love the event, it's the reality of accepting this is. Now, I can either question my thoughts about it, I can find a way to move past it, or I can stuff it down further and carry it as an even bigger part of the story of my pain and suffering. We all have it. That there's not a single person who has not had, suffering in our life. It's what we do with it. And we know these people that love to suffer. And so give them a reason they want to be fed. And when you see it happening, you see the story come out, you see the pain body, the arguing with reality. And believe me, if you have teenagers, you've you've been through this at some point, and they're convinced, or other people, not just teenagers, they're convinced that this story is real. Well, even if you come to them with the facts, when their pain body is activated and they can't see past this, the blinders that they have on about it, they will not hear you because it's not them. And so when you see this pain body activated, it's I compare it to an addict who is in full-blown addiction, or they're on something and they're out of their mind, and that's not them. That's not the person. That's not my friend. It's not my child. It's not whoever it is. It's in this where they're out of their mind. Well, when a person you encounter with their pain body comes up like that, and you can stop in the moment and realize, I'm not talking to my friend. I'm not talking to my mother or anybody. I'm talking to her pain body. And to not engage it, maybe just, I understand. That's got to be tough. That's a good one. Wow, that's got to be tough. When they're dumping their, the story that may or may not have happened. But the idea of carrying that and carrying it and layering it with more and more suffering and needing more, because that's become their identity. And this is what we're talking about, are these stories that have become a part of our identity. Yes, this did happen to me. It's who I am. I'm the victim of this. And so we perpetuate that thinking by engaging with somebody who will try to share with you, no, that's not really how it happened, or, oh, you're so lucky because you're still alive, whatever you want to do to try to lift their spirits. In that moment, you will not. And so it's kind of a trick. It seems like a trick, and it's easier to begin to recognize it in other people, right? So you can be at work or somewhere, and it's like, oh, this must be that pain body that she was talking about. Okay. I'm not going to argue with it. I'll just say, wow, that's got to be tough. That must hurt. And then keep it there. So once you begin to recognize what it even looks like, then it's time to go, oh, all right, what about me? When do I engage in a pointless argument or trying to defend something simply to keep my story alive without any intent in my heart to move past it? There is no, well, what's the transformation path here? You're not really going to get that when that pain body is up. So I think I've just got like a couple more slides. Really, I had a quote by Viktor Frankl. So remember, do not engage. Those are your 3 words to take away tonight. And I wanted to say to you, remember, transformation is a process. So give yourself time, because it is a lifetime of processing each moment that gives us the gift of living intentionally. It is conscious awareness that allows us to react or respond. And this is my last slide, and it's so pretty. I will send it to you. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And that's by Viktor Frankl, and I'm sure you've all heard it 100 times. But when you learn more about the pain body, there is not a more pivotal time to recall that quote. And between the stimulus and response is that space. Those spaces of deep breaths, letting go of our need to defend our story, is what gives us not only our own growth path, but like I've said before, if this doesn't enhance our relationships, then, what does it matter? So I hope I will send you a link to, it's chapter 5 in the book, but all of they're up on Oprah's website from, like I said, from 2008. You could watch all 10 chapters, and it's, like I said, I've got all 10 chapters. I've listened over and over, but chapter 5 is about the pain body. And it's not something that it's not a one and done. I give you a written out definition. You're like, got it. It's beginning to see it in action and do a little bit of the work with it, where you can see, oh my gosh, I have it, you have it, we all have it. What do we do with it? What do we do with it? So, like, back to Byron Katie and the questions from last week. Stop, question our thoughts. But this one piece that I wanted to save until the last part of the Metamorphosis module is so important to me. I don't know if it will be to you, but when I understand that, yes, I know everybody has their core fears, their core motivations, their things, their behaviors, and all of those things that we've talked about. We all have that. But we most likely don't know the depths of the story that a lot of people carry that we'll probably never be privy to and shouldn't be. But just knowing that lives inside of them. And what Eckhart says is, you can know it's a pain body reacting when the reaction to something is just over the top. It's like, somebody cuts you off in traffic. That was an example. And you lose your freaking mind, right? And you're like, he just wanted in, and it has nothing to do with the guy cutting you off in traffic. There's this whole story that's built up inside. So that I'm so sad about my screen share, but I'll get the slides to you. I just wish I could have recorded it for later. So does this make any sense? Can you recall, like, maybe a gathering with a relative, or, can you think of an example that might be like, oh, that sounds like, every time my sister comes over, she brings her story, or whatever. Does it make sense?
It does make sense to me. And I think it might add a little bit to my compassion. I don't need to engage. Don't tell me all the details. I wouldn't say that to someone, but I mean, just to know, okay, we all have this part of us that's trying to get fed, and let's not engage. But just to know that that's there. And if someone is really angry, that the first thing I think is, okay, this is not about the situation usually. And then I always try to say, well, and this isn't about me usually.
Yeah.
But I could see how you could be a lot more compassionate if you think about the pain body.
And if you think of it in terms of, I had this one opportunity to just I hate to say starve it a little, but minimize it. We'll say that. Because every time you feed it, it reminds me, you remember that little shop of horrors? Horrors? Feed me, Seymour. And that's what I think about that. And if I don't, then it just minimizes a little bit. It's exactly what you said. You have compassion. And even when it's, when I didn't want to say it, when I wanted to, because those of us that are assertive types are just like, snap out of it. Let's move on and stop living in the past and all that. And that's just not how the whole world thinks. And so I have had, like I said, I've been doing this since 2008. And to just, even when I so badly want to say, that's not right, that's not how it happened or whatever, just to say, wow, that must have been tough. Even though in my head, I'm like, but every time, then the time will come, a lot of times, not all the time, where they'll be able to recognize, oh, and it's a literal, almost like a physical, what happened there? Because somebody changed the dance. This is how we've done it all our lives. You fuss, I fuss, and we do this, and then we both walk off mad or whatever it is. And it's like, somebody stepped out of the dance that we were all used to doing. And it really does. It can bring about a physical, like a diffusing. And now they don't even know what happened. Well, when you can begin to recognize it in yourself, that's hard. I'll have to say that takes a little humility, where instead of just huffing off. But of all the things that we study, I love the Enneagram, but these are just such extra layers to explaining something that I can't just say, well, that's your type. Well, that's your, that's your core fear. That's your motivation. There's so much depth to all of us. So I hope I've at least piqued your curiosity, because once you see it happen, it just releases so much of I'll say my need to make things right. Mm-hmm. I literally, when I was young, said, if people would just do what I say, everybody would get along. And I believed it, right? I guess that's sorry, Lee.
There's your one.
On one wing saying, yeah. Let's do this
right. Right.
Oh.
Well, and there is a right. Right. That's the fiction, right? That there is a right. And when you're in that situation, at least one of the things that I was thinking when you were talking about the pain body, and this is my introduction to it, right? So brand new baby thoughts, right? But I was thinking, when a friend comes to me with a situation that they're talking about, right? I think about it as being supportive to them, to listen to their thing. And my type structure makes me want to try to fix it, right? And my type structure tells me the lie that they want my help,
yes,
or they wouldn't be asking, when really what they're doing is maybe venting, not asking, right? But I presume that now we're collaborating on this problem, right? And how are we gonna fix it, right? And if you're mad, if I am going to help you, I have to agree with you, right? In my mind. And so now I'm mad with you because that was wrong, right? I mean, it's like, boy, howdy, we got to fix this thing. And I don't think of it, or I haven't thought of it as feeding a negative thing. I've thought of it as like, what is that expression? everyone gives themselves full credit for their intentions, right?
I like that.
So it's like, what I'm wanting to do is help you. But if I'm letting you feed this negative churn,
Mhm.
then is that helping? Right. And so how do I help? Where is the line? I think this is the question that's coming up for me to think about more, is where is the line between witnessing something for someone or creating a space where they can be seen?
Mhm.
Like, when does the helping come in, and how to do that in a way that doesn't feed the drive of the pain body, right? Like,
Right.
the only other real thought I had that came up was talking about that, feeding the pain body of the person who was mad, and how that would like re-trigger or reinforce my own, whether it's similar to their situation or not. But like, I was seeing something kind of recently about, when we're parenting little kids or being around little kids and they start crying, we like want to get them to stop crying.
Mhm.
Right. That's the goal,
Yeah.
and, and, it's just not frequently a good move. Like, it would be better to let them cry and feel the emotion, and why is the crying, right? Like, I see you're really upset, but instead we are like triggered into being upset because somebody else is, and we don't want to be upset, so let's make the upset stop, right? And we
That's
just
good.
aren't we aren't taught how to handle those more difficult emotions in a constructive way, right? It's just, I mean, we all learn, hold your breath and the crying will stop.
Mm.
There, you're fixed, right? And, then we grow up not knowing how to handle them. And then we don't know how to let anybody else handle them, you know?
That was so beautiful and such a visual that, okay, so yes, we want to help. That's, I mean, good grief. If I'm doing coaching, that's, that's because I want to help people recognize their own growth path. But what you just said about telling a child, stop, especially like, you don't have anything to cry about, or because it
You're
makes
fine.
right.
Yeah.
So stuff that. Then we all have that. We all had that when we were young. Nobody wants to hear a screaming kid. So that's how these little things happen. But see, now that you're being aware of that, these are the little things, just moments of awareness. So when you're with, it's like you were saying, and I'm just trying to say it back because it was really so good. When you're with somebody else, you made the statement, if I buy in, I don't think you said buy in, but if I've basically made a contract that I'm
Yeah.
on your team here, now we're both upset because I need to be mad for you.
Yeah.
And it's what you said. It somehow it just activates that story within you that may not even have anything to do with her story, but now you're both just full of this energy, this, and it all goes back to the thing that we did not resolve when it first happened, and we just carry it and we carry it, and people carry it, and generational trauma. We carry that story. We carry the story of, oh my gosh, there was a story, the wonderful whites of West Virginia, and it was just generational drug addiction and the story that they just created about themselves. And it was just heartbreaking. The family's last name was White. It wasn't like white people, but So generations carry this story, in countries, like I said, they carry this very heavy burden, and it becomes an identity that I'm just trying to introduce us to questioning these attachments to these stories, and to help. One of the best ways at times to help somebody is to not engage in their pain. That doesn't mean, of course, if somebody comes to you with a problem, you're not going to help them. The difference is perpetuating their story because they don't even really want an answer. That's the difference. That's the difference in somebody who's in crisis or is coming to you for help, or somebody who's coming to you with this pain body and the story, and they do not really want your help. They just want you to give them something to feed that negative energy.
Yeah.
And it's not really a subtle difference when you know who needs your help and who just wants that,
Mm-hmm.
that fuel.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I know, introducing a whole new concept. It's like, that's what I was talking about. If you leave here tonight going, what the heck was she talking about? I hope you just see that I'm trying to help us see different ways of questioning these long held stories and how we can begin to surrender the attachment to it. That's where the magic happens. But the transformation happens after the surrender. We have to be willing to let that go. I'm going to save my favorite butterfly story till next week when we're breaking out of the cocoon. But did y'all have any questions about last week's journal prompt?
I didn't have a question, but I know these concepts from 10 years ago,
Yeah.
and then I just put it aside. And so once again, I did one and I'm like, wow, that's enlightening. So it was a good reminder for me.
Good.
And of course, it was a little odd for me because I'm questioning my type.
Yeah.
But I decided to do one from, let's see, how did you put that?
Oh, you don't have to
From
be.
the core truth.
Okay.
The core truth. I have inner stability and peace of mind, which is a 9, not a 7. And so I said, yes, I must have those. And I even put it stronger. I said, I must have those at all costs. And which, yeah. So I said, yes, of course it's true. And then, of course, question 2, I can't know for sure that that's true, that I must have this inner stability or peace. And then how does it make me feel when I hold on to that belief? Frustrated with my negative emotions. I don't like my negative emotions at all. I know we've been talking about that some. And then outraged. Why would life give me these problems?
Yeah.
I just want to live in stability and peace. What's the issue here? So I just be really frustrated. And then fear of the future can come in there with that thought because, okay, well, and I do. I mean, I have situations that are not stable. I have a son that has schizophrenia. I don't know for sure if he can still live next month where he lives now. And I have no plan B. So yeah, I can really get into what those ideas do to me. Frustration, anger, and fear. And then I just thought, what would I be without those thoughts, that connection to those thoughts? More trusting of the universe unfolding as it should be, which I love that Desiderata that says that, but I do have a question, I think, that's kind of funny. Okay, so this class is unfolding too. So who folded up the universe? Because we're unfolding it. Anyway, so I wrote that not being connected to that thought would make me more able to be grounded when things are shifting, and maybe having a new definition of peace. It doesn't have to necessarily be how I would like it to be all the time. So the exercise really gave me some thought, and actually I think that a part of me certainly doesn't think I need peace and stability at all prices, at all costs, because I have lived with this situation. My son is 41, and he got sick at about 19, and that's a long time.
Yeah.
And so I'm really thankful that I can have some peace and stability with his situation. I think there is such a thing. I don't quote the Bible very much because I studied it for 45 years. I'm moving on to new books, but I love the concept of peace that passes understanding. And I have absolutely had that. So I was able to look at this, see what I need to do, but also say, you've grabbed hold of some of this. You either do that, or I guess after tonight, I could say, or you carry around a huge pain body that just keeps eating and eating. Thank you guys for letting me share that.
No, thank you for sharing that. You said one thing that was you said all of it was wonderful, but you quickly said, maybe it doesn't have to be the peace and stability that I thought it was going to look like, something like that. Like you opened up to, maybe my definition of peace will change or can change. That's pretty big. Yes, for those of us that say, and most people do, this is the way it needs to look for me to be happy, be peaceful, be anything, but to be open to, all right, at this moment, I'm open to the concept of it being a little different. And when you went through the exercise, I think if we really sit with this, each one of us, and we can't do this all day, every day. Question, sit here. Is that true? Is it really true? But for one part of that, to be able to tune into, how do I feel right now? Well, we know when we're in that state, when we have the tension, our shoulders, our heart, wherever you carry your stress. I went to a yoga class this morning. This is my third one ever. And just learning or being aware of the areas that kind of stay tensed up, and where we, relaxing the different parts. It was like, oh, wow. I didn't even think about that. And that's what you were doing, is being aware of how you feel when it has to be this way, and how would you feel without that thought. And you just did beautiful with just that one thing. I love that. Open it up to an idea of peace that looks different than I thought. I'm gonna remember that one. That was good.
Yeah. I think that's so good. And Danae, too, what you're saying about where you feel something in your body, I think this is a piece that's so important, and not really well understood or talked about frequently, which is, we just start connecting that narrative to whatever we're feeling, and then that's why it's happening, right?
Mm.
Instead of that, noticing what is happening and not having to make meaning out of it yet, right?
Right.
Like those, and some of the Enneagram work that I do that's more somatic based,
Mhm.
it is that, like, where is that feeling, right?
Yeah.
And what is that sensation? Not, well, my jaw is tight, so it must mean this. It might mean anything, right? It means you've got tension there, right? And for myself, finding out that what makes me really tense is holding on to the story, right? Like if I clench my jaw because I'm mad and I'm not wanting to say I'm mad, then the script that starts unfurling is, and this is like last time, right? Like the narrative of
Mm.
what this means. And then I'm really clenching my teeth, right? And then in a minute, I've got a headache. And then now, why do I have a headache? Well, it's because of what they did, right? And it's like, no, you've got a headache because you're like a dog with a bone, with this story, right? And
Mm.
you let that anger go, like just be mad as a wet hen for a minute and let it be, then that's done. And I don't have to resist reality in that specific way that causes just an incredible constriction. And I think that's in 9 different ways we constrict against reality, right?
Right.
And that habituated patterning comes to feel safe.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Isn't that
and then,
crazy? It does.
yeah. And so then, like, now relaxing is scary, you know,
Yes.
and, you know, and that's a
If I don't have my
problem.
guard up.
Right. Well, because I relaxed that armor, right?
Yeah.
This is how I see reality, and this is the story that I'm telling, and the story I want to believe on some level. And so I look at that to only see the things that support that and deny all of the things that don't support it, which I think, Mary, was so beautiful. What you were saying is redefining the term, right? What does it mean to be peaceful?
Yeah.
Well, I have a concept of that. And if I expand that concept, then more things can feel peaceful, right? But if I just stay that, like, no, this is peaceful. We said this is what we wanted, and this is it. This is the only way, But we just as human animals, we are looking as a survival strategy to see what has worked before. And that worked before, so we're not trying anything else. Right?
Yeah.
But these invitations to inquire, is that really true? Right? Or is it just, or yes, this is giving me energy, but what kind of energy, and energy for what?
Mhm.
It's like I'm feeling supported that this person is joining in with my pain body party,
Mm.
but I'm really just staying angry or agitated or triggered, right? Like that's not, I'm just floating in that churn, which in its own way is stagnant, right?
Mm.
Like, um,
That's good. Yeah.
and different, we'll have different tolerances for that energy, right? It may be that we run out of it too quick, and it may be that we wrap it around us like a big fuzzy blanket and hang out there forever.
Yeah.
You know, but or that we don't know what to do, right? That we kind of bounce in and out of it. Yeah. But I think that they're the sort of like patchwork of what you're putting together like from a structure junkie standpoint, makes a lot of sense. And you're inviting the conversation and like, it's cohesive and comes together, and then you expand a little bit bigger, but then you come back to what we talked about before, which now I can see in a different way because I've seen this, I took the ride for understanding, last week. And so I think it's a beautiful unfolding. I like the way you origamied this business for us to unfold it.
You like the way what?
You origamied it. You folded it up for us, and now unfolding it.
That answers my question. Whoever is in charge of this universe does origami.
Yep.
So of course everything is unfolding as it should.
Right.
Thank you so much, Lee.
the great origamist in the sky.
That's it.
Or whatever.
I wish I could do that.
I prefer that to angry sky daddy. I do.
Yeah, good idea.
I want to just say one thing you said I'm getting these little pieces from you guys, and it's like, oh, I gotta keep that one because that's a keeper. But when you said, I've got this negative energy or this anger or whatever emotion it is, you said, and it's what'd you say? It's like a dog with a bone. I thought, oh my gosh, we just sit there and gnaw on it and gnaw, and we just keep that bone and just keep that is a great visual. It's like, it's nothing there. It's just a bone. It's not even nourished.
Right. It is an empty bone. Like you are just, at least have somebody slather some peanut butter on that. I mean,
but we call it, a pity party. I'm gonna throw myself a pity party. That's, okay, go take yourself and throw yourself a pity party. But that's not usually the way it is. Once we start that pity party, then we need somebody to feed it. And it comes in different ways. And I'm glad we're having this part of this to wrap this up. It doesn't always have to be anger. Oh, people have pain bodies that are just, they're sad. They're just constantly a sad story. People thrive in that sadness. And I know when I was listening to the Eckhart, one of they were videos, but they're audios in my head. So I'm listening. And there was a man who was going through the course with Oprah through each week. He was reading the book and doing the web series, but his wife didn't want to do it. And gosh, that's a very interesting situation, but because he was like, well, he came across like he was enlightened, and I don't do anything to activate her pain body. And Oprah's like, oh, really? She just kind of was funny. But he said the week that they were doing the pain body, he was printing off the worksheets, and she picked him up out of the printer and read it. And she said, oh, you're talking about me this week. And I thought, okay, when you have that ability, even though who knows what happened with her and she didn't want to deal with it, but she recognized herself in that story. And like I said, and you'll have it in your journal prompt for tonight. Really, the slides basically I took from the journal prompt, because I want you to be able to read this. If you just heard it tonight and even just heard me read it from the slides, I wanted you to have the definitions of what the pain body were like, but then we can recognize it. And it's like, I know, I've carried stories before, and justifiable stories of pain and suffering. And, I won't say that they're gone for good, but I am, Mary, you said that perfect thing. It is that peace that passes understanding, because I could not carry it to the degree that I was, the sadness, the, all of the emotions that go with something that's just tragic. You can't just, even though I'm a 7, I can't just say, well, I'm done with that. I tried that. But through really facing the story itself and my needing somebody to just, feed me so it's okay that I carry that story longer. It really is hard to think, who would I be without that story? And I've heard, again, on the webcast, a girl who she identified as maybe an anorexic. I forgot what it was. It was an eating disorder, but that's the story of who she was. And she did not know how to think of herself as anything else but that. So that was a great conversation with Eckhart and her. And well, who would I be if I wasn't the girl with anorexia or whatever? So we could talk about this endlessly, but I thank you guys for your insight with the questions from last week. And again, I appreciate all that you have contributed to this whole journey. I heart you too. Oh, I'm going to stop recording right now. Thank you guys.